Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. So glad to see you all here on this lovely St. Paddy's Day. Woohoo! Thanks for coming out to this wonderful MOVE event, doubling and tripling your threat. We are here on behalf of the MOVE committee. My name is Kevin High. I am one of the members of the steering committee of MOVE. MOVE is a organization that is built on volunteerism. It actually is an acronym that stands for Members Organizing Volunteer Efforts. So we organize events like the one you're attending tonight. We also organize marches and stand in solidarity with our fellow union members across the board. A couple of events coming up that are of note. Speaking of standing with our fellow union members, many of you may have heard that the LA County Federation of Labor is setting a movement to raise the minimum wage in Los Angeles to $15 an hour. And there are a couple of events that are tied to that we'd like to make you aware of. Several dates that'll be coming out in an email that you'll get from SAG-AFTRA. There's a couple of hearings that are coming up on the Economic Development Committee, City Council, so to consider the proposal of increasing wages. The first of those events is March 24th at City Hall, and then there's one on March 26th at the What's Labor Community Action Committee, and also one on March 31st at Van Nuys City Hall, and again on April 2nd at the Museum of Tolerance. Again, these dates will all be in an email that's going to come out to you probably in the next few days or so. There's also another event called the Fight for 15. Raising the minimum wage is holding a large-scale labor action on April 15th, tax day, in downtown Los Angeles. Marchers will gather at Grand Park and march to Figueroa and 28th, and then possibly to USC. Again, additional details will come out in the email. We want to urge all SAG-AFTRA members to wear their shirts. But this is a thing to note. Well, the meeting point will also be noted later. But a thing to note that a bit careful on this one, because we are going to be out there representing fast food workers and other low-wage workers. And of course, many of our actors work on campaigns for McDonald's and other fast food workers. So it's kind of a fine line that we're going to be riding there. So just note that SAG-AFTRA supports raising the living wage and bringing people out of poverty, but we do not want to target any one specific company. So keep that in mind if you do join the march. Again, additional information will come out in an email in a couple of days. Another thing that we are proud of here with MOVE is our liaison with the Motion Picture Television Fund, and we have upcoming our Senior Buddy Forum on April 28th. That will be in the Maxwell Boardroom. If you'd like to find out information on some of the opportunities that are there, a lot of our members have found wonderful connections with some of our senior members, members of IATSE, members of SAG-AFTRA, that are part of the Motion Picture Home. Some have become like senior buddies with them and visit them, or just computer tutors. They're looking for all different types of volunteers. Matter of fact, Jen Faith Brown, who is created this event tonight, she and I started a cabaret at the Motion Picture Home where we gather with singers and sing in front of them. Holly has joined us, and AJ, who's on the panel, has also joined us before. So it's another opportunity. So we're really reaching out to everyone. Find opportunities. There are ways that you can connect with seniors out there that are members of our community. So Senior Buddy Forum, April 28th, that'll be in the Maxwell Boardroom. And also in April, 2 days later, we have Commercial Stars coming up, where we're going to have some chats with, you guessed it, commercial stars, and that'll be here. And then upcoming in May, we have the second part of this program, Live Long and Prosper, which is focused on health of the body, health of the voice, basically protecting your investment. So we'll have further dates released for that soon. and a lot more information coming your way. If you are not on our mailing list, make sure you do join our mailing list. You'll be the first ones to be advised of all of the wonderful things that we have going on here with Move. Just go to the SAG-AFTRA homepage and scroll over to Organizing and scroll down to Move. Click on that, and from there you can submit your email address to us. You can also watch a wonderful video presented by Ellen Crawford, who is the chair of Move, that talks a little bit more in depth about what we do here. And you can also join our Facebook and Twitter and connect with us in all different sorts of ways. So again, go to the website, sagaftra.org. I think you can even go sagaftra.org/move, and that'll get you there. All right. So without further ado, I would like to introduce a wonderful person and great friend, and she has got a wonderful panel scheduled for you all. Jen Faith Brown, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. At this time, I want to, without further ado, introduce our amazing panel. If you can all come out and take a seat wherever you'd like. Dana Wilson, dancer, choreographer. Pete Engel, agent with Clear Talent. Gerald White, sight singer extraordinaire. Dan Navarro, singer, songwriter. Sally Stevens, singer, composer. Vocal contractor, Matisha Baldwin, dancer, choreographer, singer, teacher, a little bit of everything, right? H.A. Teshin, singer and demo producer. Jasper Randall, singer, composer, and vocal contractor. Well done. So if we can start by having you all just tell a little bit about yourselves, what you do in the industry, and what steps did you take to bring you where you are today?
Starting here?
Yeah, starting with...
Hi, I'm Dana Wilson. How's it going? This thing really works very well.
It does work very well.
If I told you every step that it took for me to get where I am today, none of you would get to talk, so I'll be very quick. I am a dancer. I have been since I probably could walk. Started when I was 3 story. I'm trained in ballet, tap, jazz, lyrical, modern, hip-hop to the 3rd. Moved to LA when I was 18 with a couple $1,000 and the dream. Took me a little while to pull it off, but every day I'm checking off, my dream boxes. Yeah. One of them is being here tonight. Take it away.
That was a very modest explanation of who Dana Wilson is. But I represent Dana Wilson.
Hey.
But I'm Pete Engel. I'm the vice president of Clear Talent Group. We're a full-service agency that represents dancers and choreographers and directors and writers and actors and models and kids and a whole bunch of people. I actually started at the company in the dance department and ended up taking over the dance department at some point. But I've always been a performer, actually more of a singer than a dancer, but always a performer.
And more of a comedian than a singer.
Sometimes a comedian, amateur. But and then eventually, I've been with Clear Talent Group for about 10 years now, so kind of rose through the ranks, and here I am.
Thank you.
Yeah, you do. You get that.
I'm Gerald White. I moved here from Mississippi. I'm a session singer and a teacher. And I guess I majored in music and classical piano. And I moved to LA to get into the session business. And fast forward 10 years later after that, I finally made it. So I guess all the pieces that added to that were I said yes to pretty much everything that I could get a hold of as an opportunity, whether it was playing for gigs or it was singing at a hotel or if it was taking a church job or whatever I could do to get out there and hone my craft and to meet as many people as possible to get to where I am today, which is right here, I guess.
I'm Dan Navarro. I do a bunch of stuff. I'm ostensibly a singer and a songwriter and a voice actor. I trained in college to be a choral conductor. That's what I thought I was going to actually do. I decided to give the pro game a little bit of a chance, and got a song on an album 2 years after I got out of school as a songwriter. Didn't realize you had to actually sell records to make any money at it, but it was about another 10 years after that before I got lucky with my songwriting and have been able to sustain a career as a recording artist, a touring artist, a songwriter. On top of all of that, starting in 1984, I started doing session work in our community in 1988, transitioned into voice-over work in 1994, transitioned into voice acting in about 2000, and I still do all of those things in varying degrees. I'm still touring about 80 dates a year. I've got a new album coming out, my 14th, and I think sleep is overrated.
Hi, I'm Sally Stevens, and I started a long time ago in variety television, and well, I started touring it with Ray Conniff, and I actually did the second to the last tour with Nat Cole before he passed away. And then I got into variety television and jingles and records in the late 60s and 70s. And, pardon me? The Wrecking Crew. And, don't interrupt me. And, and got into film work also in the early time, and choral work. And I worked primarily as a singer, just a freelance singer. And then about 20 years after I'd been doing that, I started to do some vocal contracting, and I've been doing that in addition to the singing ever since. I've done some writing for television and film and recording projects, mostly lyric writing. And I did a little voiceover work back maybe 20 years ago, was the spokesperson for one of the radio stations here in town for a while, so I've kind of dabbled in some odd things over the years.
Hello, everybody. My name's Matisha Baldwin, and I am the triple threat of the bunch. I sing, I dance, I act. I've been doing it since I was about 3 because I come from a family of entertainers. My dad was a part of a group called The Emotions that toured with Earth, Wind, and Fire and the Commodores, and so my mother was an opera singer. So I was on tour when I was little, so that's what I know. I watched them sing and dance, and I would watch TV in the hotel rooms. So I always wanted to do all 3. And so my parents said, if you're gonna be in this business, it's a tough business, you're gonna train hard. And that's what I did. And I trained hard to perfect all 3. And that led me to being able to produce shows and direct and private coach people and open up my own performing arts academy now, where I train triple threats to do what I do. So that's me in a nutshell.
I'm AJ Teschen. I'm a professional singer. I'm in the LA Master Chorale, and I do a lot of session work. I moved here from Boston. I went to the Boston Conservatory. I have a degree in musical theater. And I had always been a singer, but I always had this fantasy that I want to be an actor. So I didn't move to New York. I moved here because I wanted to do TV. And after about 6 years of trying to be a triple threat, I just kind of gave up on the acting and realized, oh, well, you've always been singing and you've always been studying voice, so why don't you just try focusing on this for a while? So in 2008 is when I released a solo album, and then I met Gerald. I started taking his class. I started practicing a whole lot, and I started taking voice lessons and working on relationships. And I had a friend who was a composer, and when you're trained for the stage, you really want to sing it so it hits the back wall and goes over the orchestra. And when you get in front of a microphone, you really can't do that. But that's sort of what my experience was the very first time I got in front of a mic. So this composer friend of mine helped me out and coached me down and helped me hone in on what it is you have to do for microphone singing, and that was very helpful. And now that's kind of what I do now, because I have a studio of my own that I work with singers, and I kind of take singers through that process, because it is a really different animal from live into the studio, even though they're very similar. So that's kind of been my experience. 2008 was my very first TV and radio spot, and I've been doing this now ever since.
Did you have to buy him a new microphone or anything?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of spit on it and some blood.
Here, you take that home with you. Thanks. I'll see if I call you again. My name's Jasper Randall. I grew up in Oregon, in a little town in the middle of nowhere, and coming down here for undergrad in '96, it was a bit of a culture shock. So I'm still getting used to it, just about, almost. Anyways, from a very young age, I wanted to be a composer, and then I realized at some point there was music in movies, and I liked movies. And so I set my sights on being a film composer, and that was kind of my drive. Coming down here to Los Angeles, it's where they make movies, and then first at Azusa Pacific University, and then moving on to USC, it was just like beeline focus, laser focus on what I wanted to do and what I was going to be. And a lot of people telling me I couldn't, and I always kind of laughed that off because they weren't me and they didn't know my drive. But along the way, all growing up and such, a lot of musical experience and singing. I simply considered singing as just one of the things I did. It was an aspect of my musicality. It's like an instrument you play. But along the way, in conducting and accompanying and the piano and singing and being part of choirs, I got to know the voice fairly well and choirs fairly well. And in working with a colleague one day, I produced a vocal session for him, and he realized that I knew my way around handling vocals and such, and at one point offered me the position of being a vocal contractor, and that was about 7 years ago. It was a big decision because you're set on one thing, and something else over here is pulling at you. It's an opportunity, and then you just have to determine, do I have the skill set to do this? And ultimately, I decided all of this energy I've been putting, maybe everything I've been trying to do to be a composer is meant to make me a vocal contractor. And then ultimately, it comes full circle. So I've been blessed to be able to work with a lot of talented singers in this community and meet a lot of amazing people. And here I am.
Mm-hmm. That's something that was so interesting to me when I first moved here from New York, was this idea of vocal contractors. I had never heard of what that was. So Sally, if you and Jesper can talk a little bit about what a vocal contractor is, and then maybe Pete, you can talk a little bit about how you do a similar thing, but your name is just different as an agent. I think you all do similar things, if I'm correct. Yeah. Sally, you can start.
Well, a vocal contractor is somebody that puts together a choir or a small ensemble, a group of singers for a project, and there's it's an addition to being a singer in the contract. There's a covered fee, a provided fee for it. So it's not like an agent, that you don't make a profit from the singers that are involved. It's not like a manager or an agent. And it's a unique community in that we don't work through managers or agents. We work independently through vocal contractors, and the vocal contractor must be a performing member of the group. Unless you're a contractor, a woman hiring a group of men, or a man hiring a group of women, or an adult with a children's choir, then you don't have to be a performing part of that group. But you have to be there in the studio and be a part of the recording process. And you really are working both sides of the fence. You're there to work for the producer and the composer, and you're there to protect the interests of the singers and be sure that they're paid properly for what they do, and that they get their breaks, and that the paperwork is filed, carefully, and that you understand the contract so that you can give an accurate budget ahead of time. And you're really there to protect your fellow singers, I would say.
Yeah, and vocal contractors, unlike agents, we don't go out, at least I don't go out and pursue work for the singers that I know. The clients, music supervisors, composers, heads of music, producers come to us for the talent. And sometimes there is a direct relationship. Many singers here do commercial work and such, and have direct relationships. But when you're dealing with multiple singers, or even a music department where they just need recommendations, they come to us because we tend to know a large pool of talent. But we're not actively out there pursuing work for you. We hope that's the case, and obviously the more the merrier. But we're not in that position of being an agent who many times pursues work on your behalf.
Right. I think one of the similarities is where we are looking out for the interests of the singers or the dancers or the actors, but the procurement of work is different. It's a lot like before there were dance agents. It was really the choreographers were the point people that producers would go to find dancers. So they didn't have a category in the union that would give them a bump in pay if they were in it, but it was kind of similar where like vocal contractors have kind of rosters of people you probably have that you suggest for different projects. That's what choreographers had. And then agents essentially created rosters for those dancers. And then producers started coming, or choreographers used to then come to us where we source out the dancers.
And you also represent the choreographers now.
And we represent the choreographers, correct, yeah.
So that has really changed in the dance industry. I would imagine maybe Dana and Matisha too, you can speak to this as well.
Probably happened before Dana, but
Yeah, I'm
She's-
only 12.
But yeah, that's really interesting that at one point it was really the choreographers making a lot of the decisions in terms of hiring of the dancers, and now this is a major shift.
yeah, I mean, the dance community has gone through a lot of growth in the last 20 years. It was a time when dancers were considered special ability extras. So older movies that you see, they're getting extra pay as opposed to now, which they get principal performer pay, of course. So
That's a nice change.
a nice change for sure. But it's still a area that is getting growth. Choreographers are still not fully represented by the union, which there's always conversations happening on that front. But
Yeah. Can you speak to that, Dana? I know you're also a choreographer.
Yeah.
Do you have a roster of dancers that you work with?
I would say more than being a choreographer, or I'll explain my process, which, by the way, I'm still learning my process. I choreograph primarily so that I can teach. Choreography is not a passion of mine. I love dancing, I love performing, but I get a similar high from teaching than I do from performing. So I choreograph so that I can teach. I don't choreograph so that I can help Target sell their product or things of that nature. So choreography for me is a very different realm. I might actually toss to you on that.
Well, most of the time when I choreograph, it is for theater productions or sometimes for film, music videos, because I have a lot of students who are music artists as well. And so I normally cast from my pool of people that I know. If I know an agent, sometimes I will go through an agent, but owning a performing arts school, it's easy for me to have access to the best people I know who are going to get the job done, who I know are reliable and dependable. And I think people still really kind of do that.
yeah, I think that most choreographers would say that, ultimately they have a product they need to create, and it's on them to make sure that the quality is strong enough. So they're always going to go with the people that they are comfortable with. But there's new people coming into Los Angeles all the time. Way too many people coming into Los Angeles all the time. And but in that mass of people that keep coming in, there are jewels.
Yeah.
And the choreographers, as much of a group that they have, they do want to refresh that group from time to time with people with new skills. Dancers do age like other people. So, they, eventually, they cycle. There is a cycle involved in that community as well. So they have to be finding out what's next. And sometimes more choreographers are more plugged into the community than others. So some really rely on the agents to say who's the best out there. And the agent's job is to weed out the masses and find the best.
At that point also, dancers have audition processes that are unlike anything on the planet. It's so insane to me that in our world it's okay to say, black girls over there, white girls over there, okay, let's see the Asian girls first, come on out. I can't believe that that's okay, but it is, and it happens. It's like you said, it's your way of fleshing through and finding the right people for the job. In my experience lately, there have been fewer big auditions and more, okay, who can I have? Just give me the person now. partially because I think work is happening quicker, so they don't have as much time to put out the call for the audition and pay for the space for the audition and do the things for the audition. It's much easier and quicker, just cost effective to go with the people you know. You skip the audition process altogether. You see their picture, and in this day and age, you see their links on YouTube. You know if they're right for the job.
I don't want you guys to get discouraged, though, if you're not like a dancer, you know what I'm saying, and you don't know choreographers, because my first dancing job, I went to a Coca-Cola commercial audition, and the casting director saw dance on my resume, happened to know Jamie King, big choreographer who needed an extra dancer, and said, if I put on a song, you think you could just improv for me? And I'm thinking, maybe it's for the Coca-Cola commercial. And I get the call, and I booked a music video. And I'm like, what? I'm a dancer in a music video? That's not what I auditioned for. But
Interesting.
so don't get discouraged, because being a triple threat, you never know what doors can open for you when you're doing something else. So much of our job as actors or dancers or singers are combined now because of the age of musicals coming back, the age of commercials, and people, even with music artists now, everybody can do a job. A singer can be an actor now and be on TV, even a rapper, So don't get discouraged if you are not, a professional dancer and you haven't gone to school for ages for it.
Actually, AJ, you came by an acting job through a vocal contractor, is that correct?
At one point in time, I made a decision to stop going to open dance calls just because it's not part of the deal with me anymore. But the funny thing is, I was just, like I said earlier, as an actor, sort of banging my head against the wall trying to book stuff, and it wasn't until I decided to pursue music as a singer. A couple years into it, I booked a TV gig as a singer in an episode of a TV show. So it's totally ironic how I would have loved to have gotten that years ago, but I had to go through this process that I went through and got it as a singer instead of what I thought it was going to be as an actor. So,
Or from a dancer point of view into the acting, that works too, that where we represent Heather Morris, who's on Glee, who started as a Cheerio cheerleader, and they gave her one additional line at one particular episode, and then they created the role of, what's her name?
Right?
Brittany.
Okay. I was like, isn't she her own self?
They created that role because of that one line they gave her. They liked her, and now she doesn't even dance anymore.
And she's fabulous in that show. I'm obsessed.
And that happened to you with voiceover, is that right, Dan?
Well,
Navarro?
yeah, I mean, there's kind of no rhyme or reason to where the opportunity comes up.
Right.
I transitioned to voiceover in 1994 when I booked a session with someone I had worked with an awful lot for a major Spanish language advertising agency. I started out doing Spanish language jingles. I went from zero to first call overnight because there was a hole in the market I didn't know existed.
Nice.
There wasn't a baritone who could sing gruff and smooth in Spanish in the community. There were a whole lot of relatively high-voiced guys and some fantastic singers out there, and I walk in the room and they go, "We've been looking for you." And I had, who knew? I literally went from zero to making my insurance my very first year.
That's awesome.
And it just happened. But I didn't book anything except Spanish language jingles for almost 10 years. That's all I did. I did 2 or 3 or 4 a month back in the old days. A couple of different things changed, but in 1994, I get a phone call to do a session, and I get there, and it's a voiceover. I had no idea. The people who had hired me to sing said, "We thought you'd be good on this." So I just showed up. I mean, I did an audition. From that, I became the Southern California voice of Southern California Toyota, saying stuff like, "Los Toyota de 95 ya están aquí."
Yeah.
I did the whole thing like this, and the funny part is I'm going to be arrested for doing this, but I start working. They said, "Let's help you get an agent." I went to an agency. It wasn't a very good agency. They had a voiceover department that lasted about a week, and I was there for a little while, but I kind of just went forward and did whatever was in front of me, and if someone asked if I could do something, I didn't even wait for them to tell me what it was. I just go, "Yeah, I can do that." If I really couldn't, then I might say, oh, I thought you said prance. I didn't know you meant dance. But over time, through a number of factors, both just being game, frankly, union service helped. I started becoming active in union service in 1997, which was how I met Jasper and Sally and Gerald, was all through union service. Because at the point in time, they were doing the English language stuff and I was doing Spanish. Slowly that changed over time. 2000, the strike hits and all of my Spanish language jingle work vaporized. Gone. Every bit of it. Somehow I transitioned into other stuff. I've been doing background voices on Family Guy and American Dad since the first season, doing with 4 other comic actors. They didn't know I wasn't an actor, so they said okay. And you know, again, I came into all of this sideways, from songwriting into you know, being a solo art, being an artist, and then being a singer in sessions.
Talk a little bit about that songwriting as opposed to composers booking work.
Well,
How does that-
I don't do film work. I mean, I've had a number of songs in films, but I don't compose underscore. It's a specialized gift, and I'm trained for it. I just have never done it. I like the idea of creating these little miniatures as pop songs or folk songs or rock songs or whatever you want to call them. And in 1984, I got really, really, really lucky, and one that ended up in a box. Went to a major artist who said, I want to do this one, and it changed everything, changed my entire life. But as far as doing it, it's, you know, that was a process of pounding out miniatures. Make a little song that's a little opera in 3.5 minutes that tells a story that maybe relates to something you've gone through, that your friends have gone through. And if people start going like this when they're listening to it, you're on the right track. But the whole life and the whole career has just been about doing what's in front of me and putting my best work out and hoping I get lucky and taking chances.
I think that's an interesting point that you're making. Gerald, you had said something similar, that you just sort of did everything and took everything, whereas AJ spoke about it was really when you focused in on the one thing where you started to find your success. So I'm wondering what that balance is.
For me, it's if you're working. I mean, the whole thing is that you started getting work as a singer. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be a rock star, and my partner and I started pitching songs as a means of getting active because our bands were amounting to nothing. We were rejected by every label in town 3 times. And one of them cracked it. The song was We Belong for Pat Benatar. It was a big hit 30 years ago. From that, we started pushing more bands, and it still was dying. My duo started out of self-defense by going to a little corner bar and playing and not telling our music business friends. But what makes it work is if you're in the middle, if you're doing something, if you're working, it can and will lead to other things. I mean, I did my first picture this year as a voice actor, my first animated feature as a credited voice actor in the Book of Life. And that came from my agent, my voiceover agent, I have a good one now, deciding to send me up on something, and they said, you don't have enough acting credits on your IMDb, you better go down there and meet him in person. And I went and did it and walked out of there and forgot about it, and a month later they called and said, you got the part. It's just get up there and swing away, get at bats.
The other part of that is that because the landscape has changed so much in the industry, you almost can't just be one thing. You kind of have to wear a bunch of different hats, and when you say do what's in front of you, do the work in front of you, you're doing work, and it's always going to lead to something else because it kind of has to. Like, it's great when you do something and you could call yourself a session singer this month or maybe even the next month, but then, something else, a bill comes in the mail and you're like, oh, well, here's something else that I'll try and do. And that's kind of how I got into having my studio. It gives me something to do during the day when there's a couple hours free time. So it's almost like you have to look for all those opportunities to simply make money, and then from there, this other world kind of opens up that you may never have ever imagined would. And that's kind of the part that's addicting when you're a performer. When you're in this business, it's really kind of cool to stretch yourself like that.
Yes. Could I jump in on that? Growing up, being trained in all styles, my teachers always stressed how important it was to be diverse and to be able to pick up anything. So I did a little bit of tap, and I did a little bit of jazz, did a little bit of ballet. Was never that person. But when I moved out to LA, I was horrified when I got to auditions and found out that nobody wanted somebody who's okay at everything. They wanted somebody who is great at the one thing. And that I remember actually being mad about that. Why didn't anybody ever tell me that I had to be the best? Because that's all they want. They narrow it down to the top 10, and then even those aren't good enough. They need the top 2. And then that's, you see where I'm going. What I did find out, though, and this was just like yesterday, is that all of that training, all of that diversity, and all the different hats that I had to wear growing up made me one special me. I sound like a kindergarten teacher. Thanks for coming. Be you. But it sounds like a cliche, but it's really, really true. I became the specialty that is exactly me, and I am the best version of me. You cannot find anyone else to come close because of all those little bits that I took from training and experience, and like you said, just saying yes to whatever was in front of you. So I really encourage, when I teach, I encourage people to be diverse and to train at a little bit of everything, but only so that that contributes to being one specialty thing, not so that it's your goal to be good at a little bit at everything.
Gerald?
One example I guess I could use would be teaching. When I moved to LA, my goal was to be a session singer, and that was always my goal, and that's still like my number one goal is to maintain that. But I started teaching honestly because I needed money. Mm-hmm. So there've been a lot of opportunities that had come my way because I needed a way to make more money or to make a living doing things that I can do. And I would choose to do something in music as opposed to working at Starbucks,
Therefore, helping so many other artists in the process. Honestly, when you think about all the people that can now sight sing because of you, and what a difference that has made, even though it was just something you wanted to do as an addition to what you were already doing, but it's made such a huge difference in,
right.
So many singers.
And you fall in, once you start doing it and you do it a lot and you start learning the craft, you fall in love with it and you learn, all the stuff that you can get from it and, the people that benefit from it, actually.
I'm hearing a lot of you talk about the shifts in the industry and change. Are those due to new media? I know, Sally, you had mentioned to me earlier something about this library phenomenon. What is that? And how is it, something that's a challenge for singers?
Well, I think I am sensitive to it because of the longevity, I guess, that I've been doing what I do. But it's a two-sided coin right now. I think that the technology has created a lot of opportunities for songwriters and for filmmakers and many other people. But it's harmed the people who work as session singers only along the way, because 20 years ago, or maybe a little more than that, everything that was in a film, everything that was in an episode of television, if there was a song going on in a bar, if there was a song going on in the car radio, that was all recorded at the time of the scoring session, and it was created by the composer. And now it's licensed. Most of that stuff is licensed. Even I think many of the composers resent the heck out of the music supervisors because they become billed sometimes above the composer on the screen credits. And the problem for us as session singers, I'm talking from a session singer point of view now, is that a lot of that stuff, and I would say most of that stuff, comes from non-union library houses. So it's great for the song, maybe, it's great for the songwriter who wrote that song because there's a license fee attached and it can go into a number of projects and it gets, I assume that, I've never participated in that as a songwriter, so I'm not really a good authority on how that works, but Well, yeah, if you have a song that's licensed as just as a background, as a cue in a
Yeah, source cues, they can be pretty lucrative. There are entities, I don't want to interrupt, take away from this because this is absolutely vital what she's talking about, but there are producers out there, music supervisors, who are going to songwriters and saying, we'll put your song in TV and movies, we will pay you nothing. You will keep your copyright, and you will glean the BMI or the ASCAP on the repeated plays of this once it hits cable and network television. And as someone who's done festival licenses with some of my songs, where the payment is in the dozens of dollars, the back end can be fairly substantial.
Yeah, and so that's the two sides of the coin. If you happen to be a singer, a session singer who also writes, it cuts into your session singing. I mean, you're not doing that work as a session singer anymore, but you have an opportunity to get your written songs out there. So, and in some cases, I know I've talked to composers at SCL meetings, that's Society of Composers and Lyricists, who have paid singers $50 to record their song demos, and then they license those things, and they continue to go on getting, and they don't, the performer gets nothing. So it's changed. That's one thing that's changed by technology in the last 15, 20 years.
Has technology changed things for composers?
Everything.
Well, everything's going faster now, that's for sure. And deadlines are shorter. I always thought that television were movies on crack and commercials are television on crack. And it's all speeding up, and the industry is moving a lot faster in that regard. So deadlines are tighter. I wouldn't blame the deadlines on them making decisions between union or non-union, but I did want to touch on the fact that one thing is that the talent is more accessible now. I can find you on YouTube. You can send me things electronically. So whereas maybe it was a longer process for you to get to an agent, to get to a contractor or such, we're pretty much once removed now. And all those barriers, or that maybe there was more of a political system, or that you had to work your way up, seniority and all that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong, experience is everything. And us hiring someone is built on not only your talent, which generally is a given, hopefully, if you're pursuing it, but trust and your experience. But for me, when someone approaches me for something, yes, I know many people that might be great for it, but I always like to put forward a large number of options, not to waste anybody's time, but it's an opportunity for me to get to know you better. It's an opportunity for maybe you to do something outside of your box, just see if in fact it's something you would excel at. Well, you do this well, and this well. What if you try recording something like this? What would, I've had many singers who blew me away when asked if they could do something, and they never tried it, and it opened up a whole nother niche, like you found with that, where all of a sudden they're the go-to person for that. So with regards to technology, it's made, and I know of composers, looking for talent who have found it, online and such, but it's in a good way made you much more accessible, or us much more accessible to you. And getting you work.
Technology is a double-edged sword. I mean, it's made a certain amount in our businesses easier, cheaper, quicker, even better. But it's also devalued certain things. We're also going through market forces that we can't control. Shaky cam. When something with a documentary look now passes for a major feature. And that used to just be bad production values. The sound of professional singers has changed over the last 30 years. To the point where now the professional singers who work the best are the ones who can sound like amateurs if they need to. Because you'll hear tracks in movies that sounds like a girl with a guitar in front of a mic, which it probably is, but you don't know if that's a 19-year-old from the corner store or a professional singer who happens to have the perception to be able to get off of the tight, right down the middle perch and be a little loose but still keep it in bounds. And you'll find that out when you get the call, what they're looking for. But those technological aspects have made it both easier and more difficult. There's more media, more opportunities, more people working, a more talented non-union pool, incredible competition out there for what we do. By the same token, the opportunities are there because we can be more nimble. A little example about technology, 7 years ago, I've been with my voiceover agent for 19 years. 7 years ago, they asked me to do something, and I couldn't go into the office to do it, so I went and bought a microphone and did it at home. Within a week, I went from 50 auditions a year to 150 auditions a year. I'm not sure why, except that I'm no longer a drain on staff time. In the voiceover world, you go in and you record the commercial you're about to audition for, or the part in an animated series. You just go record it. Hell, they could use it. I did a trailer for an Arnold Schwarzenegger picture a year ago where they just used my audition. They just said, we just dropped your audition in. But I recorded home with a USB microphone I take everywhere with me. I was going to bring it tonight to show it to you guys. And all of a sudden, I'm getting triple the auditions. You can use those market forces to work for you.
I'm going to jump in on that point as well. I agree, double-edged sword. I agree, accessibility is everything. It is so super important. And probably right now, everyone in this room has a camera on them. I would be shocked, actually, if you don't. I have 5 cameras on me right now because of a little project that I've undertaken that I'll jump on in a second. But the flip side of not only is it awesome to be accessible, but because it's so easy to be accessible, it's a very saturated market. So everybody can put a dance up online. And just because theirs has more likes, it's more popular, it's better. Kind of sucks for me that I've been training for my entire life and my moves weren't as popular or cool. It's an interesting study in, I guess, marketing, because you just see that little number in the bottom right-hand corner reflects what the people think. And sadly, that number can turn into almost exactly a dollar amount of how much you are worth. It's crippling to me, really intimidating to me as an artist who I love to train, I love to take class, I love to perform. My last job was with Justin Timberlake, who has probably a few hits on YouTube. I haven't checked, I don't know. But I've been intimidated by those kind of numbers because I'm afraid that nothing I could ever put out would get that big. As a result, I haven't put much out. And as a result, I've kind of been invisible, which has at certain times really hurt my career. There have been times where an agent will call and say, send a link, send you doing some this, that. And I'm like, okay, if I get to the studio now, I can put it on tape and I could blah, 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 just because it's not up already.
But you do have 10,000 followers on Twitter. So when you're saying you're not out there,
well,
I
that's
think
true.
You're pretty out there.
I have a few thousand followers on Twitter, but just in the last year, I have accrued, I don't know who's really counting, but 19.6 thousand followers on Instagram. Because I started making an Instagram video every single day 352 days ago. I am almost at my year mark. So I actually am one of those Steadicam jackasses doing it myself. But in 1 year of a very consistent act, I went from having 6,000 followers on Instagram to having 19.5 thousand. And by the end of the year, I will have 20,000 easy, because that's just kind of the way that it's gone.
Why is that so important for a dancer? And then can we also turn it over to the singers?
Yeah.
Are things like Twitter and Instagram, all those things important for singers too now?
My Instagram is @DanaDaners. Dana as in me, Daners as in dancers without the C. Instagram was important for me as a creative challenge. I've never considered myself a creative person, which might be shocking as I am here. I'm surrounded by really creative people, like art people, big art people. And I'm a girl who likes to do cool moves for the most part. But I read the book, The Creative Habit. I wanted to exercise my creative muscle. So I made it an everyday mandatory thing. Kind of came at an incredible time because I was on tour for 1.5 years. What better time to be in people's face here than when I'm actually in Australia? So It was a really good way for me to stay relevant, to stay present in a community when I was actually miles and miles away doing the same, 7 moves for 1.5 years, but doing something different here. People are seeing me grow and me evolve, and I was very fortunate that those two things coincided because, every day I opened my door and I had a new set right there. I was completely lucked out with how that sort of fell into place. But It wasn't easy. It was extremely valuable, and an unforeseen kind of consequence. What is it when it's a good consequence? Serendipity. I like hashtag blessing. We'll go with hashtag blessed. This Instagram project wound up getting me sponsored by GoPro. So I didn't ever fancy myself a videographer. I still wouldn't consider myself a videographer or a director, but I wound up acquiring probably $1,000 worth of camera equipment, and now I can be that if I want. And I can put something on tape for you at the drop of a hat if I want, or for you. So I used to be horrified and crippled by technology, and like most things that I'm afraid of, when I run at them full force, I'm really, what's that positive reinforced, good job, slap on the back? I don't know the words. Sure, I am rewarded handsomely when I do that. So, of course, it also is a benefit that I learned how to edit from this little project. I now work on Premiere Pro CC, and I'm pretty good, and I'm really fast. And I also get to show the world my best self. So it's kind of up to me what you see. I'm deciding what the world thinks about me, and that's kind of really awesome. Instead of just that one moment in the room, say I'm at an audition, maybe I have the flu that day, maybe I fell out of my turn that day. I have 365 choice moments of the me that I want everyone to see. So how much control does that give the auditioner? It's really, really remarkable.
Let me, a little bit on how social media has affected choreographers in the market. It used to be choreographers, the way they mainly get work is their resume, their relationships with producers and directors. And so a choreographer would work for a director, and then they continue to choreograph, and then eventually they become a director, and their associate then becomes a choreographer, and it's kind of this serif system of choreographers in the commercial world. And then YouTube happened, and especially in the last 5 years, I would say, choreographers have been putting their stuff up on YouTube and Instagram and all of the sites, and are getting millions of hits when some of these things go viral. And now work has started to shift away from established choreographers and is going, it's not completely yet, but the trend is now someone that maybe never worked on a film or a video or a TV show, some director or producer saw this viral video
Says, I want that.
and says, I need that in this film. And they might have no experience how to work with cameras or be on set, and they show up and, but then that starts their resume, and then they work on other. So it's an interesting access point that choreographers are starting to get, maybe ill-advised on the production side, but so it has been established choreographers who are like worked their way up into the system are a little, not very happy at that. But it's kind of the way of the world right now, and it's happening. And so we've advised some of our clients to say, not that you have to go, because some of these choreographers are putting out videos like every week, and just keep going, and that's how they're building their viewership. Is they have to be in that space, but at the end of the day, their resumes are going to hold their own. They're going to continue to work because they know the director, they know the producers, But it's an interesting shift.
Can I ask you a question, and it expands a little bit, but do the dollars involved have anything to do with those choices? Because the music departments a few years ago, maybe this was probably 10 years ago, were looking for bands on YouTube because they were young kids, they were non-union, and they could buy them out. And I just wonder if it affects these.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately, they don't go into those experiences with a lot of experience, so their rate is lower. They are getting. That's the other problem in the choreography world. We're starting to see rates dropping because they're getting these YouTube online people for cheaper, and it's bringing down choreography rates because choreographers are not covered under the union, so they don't have a scale. So we're seeing that too.
I think one thing that's happening because of the media stuff, and it's and it's the bane of artists, I think. It's the bane of anybody who loves what they do, because we do it because we love it. We don't necessarily do it to make money. We would do it if we weren't paid for it, probably. And the fact that you can get a YouTube thing up there, and people see it, it's wonderful. It feeds your ego. Somebody might discover you. You might get a zillion hits, and it might increase your value on the marketplace. But it's a great, it's a great source of cheap stuff, you know. It's the good news and the bad news. I mean, and there's enough stuff out there that somebody has to find you. It's like with a recording artist, you can get your stuff up on iTunes. I've got stuff on iTunes, but nobody's interested in it anyway. But
I just bought it.
But there are ways to push it, but you don't have a major record label behind you anymore. So the people have to find it. I mean, it's marketing. You have to do your own marketing, and I don't know too much about that.
From the music standpoint, the marketing of independent artists is a whole topic in and unto itself. I could do hours on that, and I do panels on that and workshops on that several times a year. I've had my own record company since 1999. I think I've put out 14 CDs. I think 6 of them were on labels, and the other 8 were on our own independent thing. I'm about to place 2 more in the next couple of weeks. It's a whole different world in how you keep it going, and how we make that fit inside a context of being working professionals who work for professional entities like producers and record companies and artists and such. It's difficult. This is where the versatility will, you know, like having a number of plates on a number of sticks, you know.
Yeah, if anybody's out there and they're like, oh my God, I don't have Instagram, what am I gonna do? There is still the question of when you get hired and you're in front of the microphone, you do have to deliver. So you can edit things and make your Instagram look fantastic, but if you're not honing your skills, if you're not out there working with other people who are interfacing with major clients, who, if you're sitting next to somebody in the chorus who might be a vocal contractor, that's a really important thing to do at the level that we're at. Or if you're just beginning, you really do get your package together and make sure you're the best you could be. And then the Instagram, you'll get the ideas for how to make your Instagram splashy and full of pizzazz. But it really, if you're starting to despair because you don't have the capabilities or the resources, you could just start by making a plan about yourself and make sure you're honing that as much as possible. That gives you the feeling of control, and it gives you the idea that you are evolving towards something.
So we have brought up the point of finding talent on the internet, online. How else do you, as agents, vocal contractors, how do you find new talent for people in this room that maybe are looking to be heard or seen?
I'm kind of speaking primarily on dance and choreography, but you know, all of our departments have different ways that they find their talent. Most, like the theatrical department, they don't really take submissions anymore, any referral. But we go scout in the dance department. We scout across the country. We have open auditions for our dance department twice a year, which yield questionable results. But the best way is through a referral, through a current client that can speak on your behalf. It's an easier door. I think any department in our agency would prefer referrals to take a look at new talent. But you could also submit on our website.
And you're seeing auditions tonight, right? So anybody out there that would like to...
Oh, yes.
But only via Instagram. You have to do it through Instagram.
Can I speak from a person? I don't do social media. And I probably should, I know. And I stress to my students to do their social media. And I'm a person who does not keep up on, I just got Facebook last year because one of my students signed me up. And
Facebook is already a dinosaur.
I know, and it's dying, you know, and and so from one of those people, I work because I know people. Because I network. That's why I work. Because I don't have time to do social media. I just don't. I'm so busy 24 hours a day. And so don't be discouraged if you don't have social media. Now, it really does help in this day and age. I'm going to say it will make things a lot easier for you. And it doesn't mean that you have to have social media dance videos or even acting videos or singing videos. You can do what you do best. If you like to cook, whatever you know about that maybe doesn't have anything to do with the entertainment industry, put that up. And honestly, it opens up doors, because right now what producers want, what directors want, and I work with a lot of those in TV film, they want people who bring an audience with them. They want people who, like you were saying, specialize in something, be good at something. So if you're not the best dancer or the best singer, sometimes you will get hired to be a dancer or a singer on something because you could cook, and they want a cook who dances and has pizzazz on the Food Network.
Right.
And you just never know.
Right.
And so I forgot my original point, why it was why I was saying that, but yes, sorry.
The original point was that you needed a social media manager.
Yeah, and so I think the most important thing for those of you who don't have social media, and even if you do, it's networking. How do you get into this business and get into what you love? Go out, meet people, find events like these where you can talk to people. There's so many outlets. There's even expos, and believe it or not, and things that you can do. Even if you're, I see that you're really young over here. There's so many things that kids can do nowadays. And even adults, get involved in anything you can where you can go and talk to people, hand out a business card. Follow up is so important. Get the email. You're out of sight, you're out of mind. And you'd be surprised if you think that, people aren't going to remember me because I don't know how to talk to people, I didn't make an impression. Figure out how to talk to people, if anything else. When you go to these events, it's not that you have to stand out so much, but if you love their work or you have something in common with them, talk to them like a normal person, and you'd be surprised what you get back from that.
Could I talk a little bit about the singer community, the session singer community, because I think it's a little different maybe from the actors and the dancers even, in that we're the session singers are the group singers, the choral singers, the solo singers, and the ensemble singers. And I think, Jasper, I don't know if you feel this way too, but I feel like we are a community of people that know each other. Whether it's because we sing many of them sing in the master chorale or a community chorale, or we've worked together just for a number of years. When I first started contracting was in the middle 80s, the early 80s, but I had worked as a singer for about 20 years before that, so I knew a lot of singers, and I knew, which ones that I felt were really strong and good singers. Once I started contracting, and I'm sure Jasper probably experiences this too, when people know you as a contractor, you have a lot of people reaching out to you. So I don't use social media to find people, because it seems like people find us and send a demo. In the old days, they used to send CDs. Now they send MP3s or a link to a website. But I also rely a lot on personal recommendations, or if I'm standing next to somebody else in a choir who's a new person and does a great job, I just remember that person. It's so the skills that we need in the group work that we do are so pretty basic. I mean, you need to have a great professional attitude, but you need to be a good sight reader. You need to have a voice that blends. You need to be conscious of being a part of an ensemble. And so if there's someone that I really respect, and they say, gosh, I stood next to so-and-so and they did a great job, that means a lot to me. Because I might not have had a chance to know that person's work. And you can't always tell, also from a demo, you can't always tell how a person sings. You don't know with today whether it's been auto-tuned or what's been done to it. So it'd be interesting to hear, Jasper, and how you feel about finding, how you draw from the community.
I've never had a problem with finding talent. They kind of swarm. But I don't say that in a bad way. I know that sounds bad, but because I'm only as good at what I do by knowing you. And kudos to you for being here. I think I was taking a nap by a tree when I was your age or something. So good for you. There's so much talent in this town. And it's easy to feel like you're lost in a sea of it and you'll never get to the top. But again, focus on what you do best and make sure the people, the singers, the teachers, the directors, the people that matter, I say that with a capital M, the people that matter know what you do best. So whether it's me or whether it's the person sitting next to you, hears about something, is asked to do something, and they themselves know they're not the best at it, that's a big if. Because we all like to think we're good at most everything when we're not. They'll turn to you. You know what? I'm not really your person, but I know who is. And so I've always said, and I'm sure Sally and the other professional singers here would agree with me, and the dancers as well, is your colleagues, the people sitting next to you, get you as much work as we do, because they hear of so much more opportunities. And so I don't want you to be discouraged at the vast amount of talent. Find what you are best at. Find that real estate where you can work hard. I do get approached by a lot of talent, and I always try to remind talent, singers, you, this is not a vacuum. You can be very good at what you do and still wait a long time to break in. You can be really good, in your mind the best, but again, that's in your mind. You see very small part of the talent pool. We see a very large part of the talent pool, and you are not in a vacuum. Remember that. But that's not to say that you never break through, because if you continue to work hard, continue to hone your skills, and continue to network, not just with us, which I would encourage for all of us, connect with us, but don't miss the person sitting next to you who might hear about something tomorrow, might hear about an opportunity, or might know an agent or someone that can better exploit different things that you do. But I would say this, put your best foot forward. Gone are the days of being a session singer, being able to do voices and sound effects and all that kind of stuff. We're not in the 20s. There is so much talent. When someone comes to me and wants something very specific, I have generally 8 to 12 people in mind. I know 2,000, but I try to be very specific, as we all do, with what we're putting forward. And if you put yourself forward as this is what I do, or these two things are what I do best, it's not to say you can't do other things and do them well, but you are raising your chances of being recognized, being noticed, being utilized for that specific skill or skill set. So, but just remember, this is not a vacuum. You are surrounded by so much talent, and I am constantly amazed at the talent. But it's not like I meet a new singer and I shove another one aside. No, I want the biggest Crayola box in the world. You're all a color. You're all crayon to me. A color, an individual color, a unique color. And for me, the more of you I know, the better I am at what I do, and the better my clients are served, and the more people look to LA and go, which it is the mecca of talent in the world. End of story. Other places have maybe they're better at this or that, or Broadway or country music or whatever. But if you're talking like diversity, forget it. My mind is blown every day with what you do.
You know, there's a quirk in the singer community that the actor community and the dancer community, the voiceover community don't have. By and large, we don't audition. We don't go out on big calls. A lot of my work comes strictly from referrals, from people calling and saying, "Are you available?" Or let's say we have a singers Yahoo group, and people will put up occasionally, looking for someone who does this. Jasper's gotten a couple of auditions from me in the last year on things where things were put up and said, we need somebody who can do this or that. And you submit, and maybe you make it, maybe you don't, but you keep communicating so that you can put that stuff out there. It's not like in my voiceover where I get an audition, I submit the audition, I send it off, I don't think about it, it goes away. People are operating on referrals, And largely, contractors are asked to put groups together without there being an audition process. So they've got to know who they're calling, trust who they're calling, and make sure that when that red light is on, nobody lets down the side. First guy who comes in on a pickup instead of a downbeat is not going to get asked back. You get a cluster chord and an upbeat, and that's the ball game. And the days of 1, 2, ready, go don't happen. Certainly not in your 50 voice or 20 voice or 80 voice choral dates for a film. You know, you're on a soundstage, and that's very, very, very costly time, and you have to stay extremely focused. But part of what I think you're talking about is be present. I mean, I got my first session under our union contracts by doing a commercial in somebody's garage, and there was a woman on the date who contracted about 75% of the Spanish language stuff in town. She asked if I had a demo, I gave it to her, I got a call a month later, and that's how that happened. You go because you're in a particular place in a particular time, putting it out there. And you got to put it out there whether there's anybody listening or not. Again, it's all about at-bats.
I'm reminded of two pieces of advice that someone told me when I was first starting out, but this is kind of, it's not really a first starting out, it's kind of like a continuous thing where you'll book a lot of gigs because of the people you know. That was one piece of advice. So if you're, looking at your list of friends, get creative and start, making sure everybody knows what you do. The other piece of advice came from you, Carissa. Said that when you're making a decision on whether or not to take a job, you might not want to look at what the money is, but you might want to look at who you're going to meet and what that's going to do for you to kind of bump you up or get you more situated in the community. And that's just such good advice because it's something that's not for beginners, it's just for everybody at any stage of the game, really.
And always being prepared, which makes your sight singing class so important.
Yep.
I also read you work with a lot of actors, Gerald, teaching them to sing. You worked with Hilary Swank and Al Pacino. For the actors in the room, how do you help them be prepared as a singer and booking work as a singer?
I found that obviously actors and singers are completely different animals. And when I first worked with actors a long time ago, I kind of cut my teeth on some that were hard to work with. And then sort of learned the process of later is just creating a safe space for them to be in. One example that you had mentioned earlier when you called me to do this was I got to work with Al Pacino, which actually came from a referral from Jasper. And I made the mistake of going and watching all his films before I went over there to work. And then my assistant told me, she said, well, he's had 2 other vocal coaches that didn't work out either. So I was, to say the least, I was extremely nervous going over to his house. And I remember walking in thinking, okay, I have a job to do today. And my job is to make him comfortable and to get him to learn this part and do the best that he can do for this film. This is totally not about me. So I went in the room, and it was him and the assistant director and their assistant and assistant, and it was just a room full of people. And I started in on the typical, some warm-ups, vocal warm-ups, and he goes, nah, I don't want to do that. So I thought, okay, this is not going good. So I pulled the director aside and I said, I can tell he's nervous, as I am, and I think you guys are in a position because, money's on the line and the whole thing. And I just said, do you mind if you guys all leave? I said, you can trust me with him, and I think he'll be a lot more comfortable if there's not 7 people here watching him learn how to sing. So he did that. He had them all leave, and then he didn't want to do exercises, so I just went to the piano. I said, what do you like to sing? And he gave me a song, and he just started singing. I just said, I just started playing, and he just started singing. So we just started singing songs that he liked. And then by about the 3rd song, he was sort of just dancing around the room and getting into it. And so then I threw in the song that he was supposed to be learning for the film, which he had already listened to, and I found a key for him, and he started singing it. And then that's how we sort of worked our way into creating a safe space for him. So it really wasn't even about voice lessons.
Right.
Because most actors that I worked with, if they're singers, they already know what they're doing, or they have voice teachers already. So for me, it's just helping them be really safe and have a comfortable
Also
space.
help with styles, for example, too, right? I mean, I would imagine there could be a classical singer comes to you to be able to sing more pop. I'm sure that happens a lot as
Right,
well.
and it's walking through the song, finding the little nuances that make it fit whatever it is they're working on. But again, I think it's helping them just relax, validating them, letting them know that, this is going to work, and I'm going to be here to work you through it. So.
And for the dance teachers that we have here, do you work with primarily dancers, or also do you sometimes work with actors and try to?
Oh, I wonder. I wish I could see a pie chart of my studentship. Really mixed bag. I work with some kids as young as age 7. I work with adults. I helped Justin Timberlake. I practically taught Joe Jonas how to walk on beat. He would not be mad at me for telling you that. I could not agree with you more that the most important thing is nurturing and encouragement. I probably speak on behalf of everyone in the room. The fact that you're here is a testament to this. We're probably all perfectionists. And in being so, we're our own toughest critics. So it was really nice to hear someone say, nice, okay, good, now try da-da-da-da. Because in our heads we're saying, that was shit, that was horrible, I'm the worst, blah, blah, blah. So when I teach, I definitely tend towards the side of nurturing. If I'm working with a vocal artist or a pop artist, for example, that's no different. Encouragement and nurturing is definitely good. And I do a lot like what you said, which is make this thing that's strange and weird relatable. For Justin, he is an extremely gifted athlete. So when you make dance more like sports, he excels tremendously. And I think, dance is not so different from acting. Acting is not so different from singing. When we really just back up a little bit, you start to see that I actually have been acting since I learned how to speak. I act different with my grandma than I do with my agent than I do in this panel right now. So once you start kind of breaking down the walls and the categories of you're not a singer, you're an actor. Once you start kind of taking that all away, you just said, what kind of song do you like to sing? You're human who likes music, who likes to sing. And now you're comfortable.
Have you been able to break some of those barriers? Have you gone from the dancer's world to the actor's world? Have you done singing jobs?
Myself?
Same for everyone, really.
Wow, yeah. My Instagram video of the day has made me much more comfortable in front of a camera. I used to choke consistently. When that little guy comes out, as soon as somebody brings up a camera, I don't know what I'm doing, can't tell you my name, I'm sweating, it's horrible. So I've gotten a lot more comfortable, that's a plus. Just to tell everyone here and everyone here, I am horrified of my voice. It scares me to no end because I have so much control over my body. Insane, but so little here. I actually bought one of those CDs that you can you learn the scales, whatever.
You have to see Gerald.
And this is gonna happen because it's not safe for me to be on the road with that CD in. No traffic, no nothing. I ran into a curb just by no, horrified. But I sang a few notes in an Instagram video recently. I don't know if they were actual notes, but sounds came out that weren't talking. So I counted that as success. I gave myself a high five when I was finished, and yeah, small victories.
And we often have our choreographers that aren't even choreographing a scene going in to work with the actors to help them move, or artists that are on stage that aren't dancers or they're not doing a pop show, but the managers say they look like a stick, standing on stage. We need someone making them feel comfortable and natural. So choreographers often go in and get them in some classes and one-on-one privates and just make them move and make them feel comfortable. So same thing, and making them, understand it's not a scary, because dance is a scary thing for non-dancers, just as singing is for non-singers,
You do a lot of dancing, right, Gerald?
Oh, yeah, you can tell, right?
We'll do a trade swap.
Make me feel comfortable now.
think
experiences where you've all, because of your singing, have found yourself in a place where all of a sudden you're having to dance or having to act, and
I haven't. I've danced. About 1964 was the last time I danced on the Danny Kaye show. But I can I just to briefly tell you about it? Do people in this room know who Michelle Pfeiffer is? Because you all look so young. I coached her for the Fabulous Baker Boys, and it was a similar situation to yours. But it was interesting how seriously she took her whole getting into singing, and we did a little vocal exercising and stuff, but mostly we sang songs, and then we went into the studio, and Dave Grusin, who was the composer on that film, is a fabulous pianist, a jazz, just wonderful player. And we did a bunch of tracks, and I sang the songs through for her, and she kind of worked with them in that way. And then very shortly thereafter, she wanted to go in and record herself to those tracks. So she picked up really quickly the wish to sing, but in that role, she wasn't supposed to be a real good singer. She was supposed to be a kind of a mediocre singer. And we actually went out with the director to hear a lounge singer. A mediocre singer, exactly. And the sweet lady thought that Michelle Pfeiffer had come to hear her because she was
amazing. I love it.
That was painful, but yeah. Anyway, but she went there to observe the style and the attitude and everything. So.
Well, I did have to take on the other role. I don't know if Jasper wants me to say anything, but he and I and a couple other people just did a TV show where we had to dance. And they thought, and when they said dance, we thought, oh, we're just going to kind of kick side to side. And there was a full song, fully choreographed. And within the first 5 minutes, they'd already taught you, 12 moves. And we're looking at each other thinking, this is not going to happen. But it puts you in the other's shoes, like you said. You're like, can I just sing? Just let me sing.
Right.
And it wasn't that at all. And we finally got it. But again, they were so patient with us and made it fun. And
Awesome.
It made us appreciate dancers, that's for sure. It is a whole nother part of the brain. I'll write the music you can dance to, but whoa.
Which I think is kind of troubling, actually, the fact that you appreciate dancers so much because it's hard for you. And I appreciate what you do so much because I know how hard I've trained to be a dancer. I would never in a million years try to tell you that I'm a singer just because I did a few notes in my Instagram video. But it's it can be stifling, the gap, like once you get to a certain level of professionalism. I'm a fantastic dancer, I can say that because it's true. But to humble myself back down to being a beginner at something is really, really horrifying. And it did happen on a job, I just remembered. I was a part of a skeleton crew for a new Broadway show, and I was told that the core dancers, were just dancers. This is a dance narrative, you're just gonna dance. But one day the director had a whim, he was like, everybody gather around the piano. And I was like, okay. So he starts giving people parts, and he says, you're gonna sing it here, you're gonna sing it here, and Dana, you go a third above that. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And in that moment, I was like, God, I wish I just knew what it meant. I didn't even have the vocabulary. So I would try it if I knew what you were talking about.
It means they sing it and then you sing it 3 times.
Incredible. So that must have been how you felt learning these things and not even having the words to explain what you were attempting to do. Oh, it's so humbling. It's great.
We were
I think
blindsided.
it's just as scary to be able to do all 3. Just because there's this, my dad used to always say to me, even though my parents are the ones who pushed me to do all 3, when I got older, he'd say to me, well, which one do you really want to do? Which one do you really want to focus on? Can you pick one? And I said, I don't get it. Isn't that what I worked all my life at, to be able to be good at all 3? Why can't I do all 3? But when I first started, you couldn't do all 3. Now you can. It's great, But the scary part is when people hire you and they know that you can do all 3, the expectation is to be excellent at all 3. And there are very few people in this world who are excellent at all 3. And there was a point in my life when I was that person, but then as you start working more in one genre, you have to let something go. And then if it's dance, you never lose it as a dancer, but it's like riding a bike. You pick it back up, but there's things, your flexibility sometimes, your ability to memorize things quicker and put it in your body. So you do lose a bit if you're not consistently doing something. So I think my advice to those people who do all three, there will come a time when you're going to have to focus on something. The good thing about being able to do all three is that it opens up so many doors for you. Don't be afraid to get stuck in one thing and say, if I go as a dancer and do this tour, then people are only going to think of me as a dancer, but I really want to be an actor and that's my main thing, but I'm doing this to make money. Or if I'm doing singing, then people are only going to think of me as a singer, and then I can't get in as an actor or a dancer. That's not true this day and age. Everything opens a door, everything. So I think you just need to have no fear, whether you go into it and you don't know the terminology, or you go into it and people have this sort of sometimes unrealistic expectation about what you can and cannot do, or sometimes they want to see you fail when you say that you can do all three. And that can be just as difficult, and then you can psych yourself out and ruin the job before you even do it, you know? So I do think, as far as terminology, one of the things that I do teach, I do work with a lot of actors, agents who send their actors to me and say, look, right now, what's being cast, if it's Nickelodeon or Disney or whatever it is, these people have to be able to do everything. And right now, they're an actor, and they may can hold a tune, they can move, but we need you to help them so we can book them more work. And when an actor comes to me and they're not a professional dancer, they haven't trained forever, the first thing I do is I give them a vocabulary list. I do, because a part of sort of faking it until you making it is knowing what's being said in the room. You know what I mean? So I have a vocabulary list for all singing vocabulary, stage vocabulary, film and TV vocabulary. My students learn it, and it's like a book. And then from there, once they learn the vocabulary, I teach them that all three of singing, dancing, and acting, you're telling a story. That's all you're doing. Whether you're telling a story with your body, whether you're telling a story with your voice and the words that are being said, we all know that words mean nothing until you give them meaning by the story that you're telling. It's the same thing with movement. You know, it's to the words, or it's to the music, and it's about how you feel. And so that's kind of how I approach people who are really actors, and they need to learn another skill set to be able to book jobs as actors these days and be flexible.
In terms of booking jobs, the tools that you need to book those jobs, one of the biggest tools is demos, right? So I'd love to hear from the dancers. I have no clue what you guys put on your demos, or how does that work? You put all different styles? Do you try to hone in on one style? What is it?
Well, I'll speak on demos in our world.
General.
More, we hear the word reel
Yeah.
in the dance world a little bit more than demo, but demo reel, I guess.
Demo, reel.
Yeah. But, you know, it's interesting. Dancers, the way that they're hired are generally not through a reel. And dancers, unfortunately, sometimes are part of the background and one of 20. So their reels end up looking like an edited thing that you can't see who this person is. You know, you kind of say, oh, that seems like a recurring person that's in this reel. So they're not as useful from an agency perspective of trying to get dancers work. Dana's reel is a little different because she has such a powerful reel as far as who she's worked with and the project she's done. So you could send that to a casting director and they could look at it and not even see her and go, okay, she's worked with every major artist or, you know, every major film or whatever. From our point of view, as agents that represent dancers, it's more important to have clean footage of them doing this style, jazz or hip hop or tap or whatever it be. So then we have that clean footage to send to the casting director or choreographer. Because really, choreographers or casting directors in the dance side want to see what they do more than who they've worked with.
Okay.
You know, if a choreographer, I'd be like, I don't care if you got off that tour. I want to know if you can do my stuff for this tour.
Right.
You know, so
Okay.
a little bit different, I think, probably than in the singing world as far as demos are concerned. But
Can the vocal contractors talk a little bit about demos? How many songs should be on them? AJ, too, as a demo producer, if you can talk about tracking them and orchestrating them.
Well, there's no magic number now because it's all digital and you can skip over. It used to be you'd want to limit it because it was a linear tape
Right.
or some medium that they would, if they didn't like it, they'd try to fast forward to something they liked, and if they ultimately didn't like it, they'd put it in the round filing cabinet on the floor. So that's different now, and things can be online and MP3s sent and all that stuff. So I'm not as concerned about how many songs or clips or whatever is on someone's demo. I just want it to be good. And I think what this common theme of putting your best foot forward, and for some of you having 2 or 3 feet, this triple threat, which is fantastic, because then you can market your dance skills to a choreographer and say, by the way, for what it's worth, I sing and I act. You can go to an acting agent and go, by the way, I sing and dance. And then you can go to a vocal contractor and go, by the way, I act and dance. Right? Because I want to know everything that you do. But the common thread, though, is whatever you put forward, it must be excellent. Why? Because if I listen to 5 incredible tracks and 1 awful one, it somehow kind of negates, it makes me pause and go, how come you didn't see that? Why are you making me discover your weaknesses or something that you're not as good as something? Are you desperate? Or do you not know? So we do need you to do your work and make sure that whatever it is you put forward, even if it's 1 song, that it's excellent and that it's what you do best. And I get lots of demos, and I listen to them and I can get a very good idea of the instrument, but it doesn't tell me what you're like as a person. It doesn't tell me what you're like in the studio. It doesn't even tell me what experience you've had. I can look at a resume, but it doesn't tell me if you're a likable person. It doesn't. So what happens then is I rely upon people, a very few select people that I trust, because I know that the cream always rises to the top. And if you're working hard and you're plugged in, I'll hear your name. And usually when it comes to plugging in new talent, it's because I'm sick of hearing about you from everybody. And I go, I have got to know who this is. Are they that good? Or if I get a great demo, I'm going to go, wow, that's really good. I'm going to reach out to some of my trusted colleagues that I've worked with and I trust wholeheartedly. I get lots of recommendations from vocal teachers. I get lots of recommendations from choral directors. You work hard, you put your best foot forward, and make sure that the people that have the ears of the people hiring you get their attention, right? You get yourself in front of them so that while it might be a long line to get to someone like a vocal contractor or a choreographer or whatever, you can also be kind of marketing yourself to all your colleagues, and the din kind of rises, and we hear it. We see it all, we hear it all. And but whatever you put forward, make sure it's excellent, because any little thing that's not just gives, at least for me, gives us pause. Because why did that get through? How can you not see that that's something you're not good at? I got 20 of them that are incredible. I don't need that. But you know what? I got 5 of that. And, I think you'd rather be one of 5 than one of 500. I mean, that's how you get work.
All of that speaks to how we do the demoing process these days. It's way, way different. When I got that first job in 1988, I had a cassette demo I'd put together of what I thought was the best of what I'd done up to that point in time. There was 1 copy of it in existence. I hadn't even had the time to make copies yet, and this person asked for it, and I'm sitting there going, well, should I keep it? I gotta make copies, so shit, I better give it to her anyway, and I had to go make another one. Now I make demos to order. I literally will sit with, I use GarageBand, I also have Logic, and have used Pro Tools in the past. I make demos for whatever people are asking for. Recently, I sent Jasper a demo of mostly Spanish stuff. He was looking for something for a Macarena type thing for a series, and it turned out I had Macarena I'd done for Tokyo Disney, so I stuck that on there. It was a way of maximizing. If I had used my existing demo and didn't re-edit it, I would lose him third track in or first track in. So every time I put something out, it's brand new to order for the person. Jasper, I sent you something recently. You were looking for a Julio Iglesias cop. I was on the road. I was in, I can't even remember what town I was in. I mean, I'm doing, Chicago, Minneapolis, Milwaukee over and over and over again, lather, rinse, repeat. And I was in my hotel room. I downloaded a track from iTunes, a karaoke track, to do To All the Girls I've Loved Before, and just to get it over to him. Because I could get it to him within 24 hours of him asking for it. I wasn't home. I didn't have my good gear. I had my laptop.
I want it.
I could do that for $2 million a year. I did a session for Julio one time. He spoke to everybody in the room except my late partner, who was Anglo, and hola, ¿cómo estás? Encantado. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Do you speak Spanish? No? Hello, good to meet you. I'm Julio. He was as leather skinned, but anyway.
Well,
The bottom line is the demoing process is about putting the best foot forward, not the foot I had, the foot you asked for.
Yeah.
Was really what I was trying.
And AJ can talk to the finer details of demo production and such, but at least for me, when I'm looking for an instrument, you don't need to be a great engineer. I'm not hiring engineers. That said, the instrument must be able to get through. But one of my favorite stories is I needed a specific rock singer, and I have a number of go-to people for that. Always welcome to hear more. You're a great rock singer yourself. Oh yeah, right? Thirds. And he's like, well, I'm in New York. I said, well, will you be home by Tuesday when the session would be? I don't want to, I can't put you forward if you're not available for the gig. I mean, we all know that, right? And he said, give me 5 minutes. And then he sent me this demo, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs in the middle of a New York subway. And you can hear people walking past, you hear the subways, and he got the gig. He got the gig. Why? Because it wasn't about some kind, at that moment, mind you, it wasn't about, how good his audio engineering was or anything like that. It needed a quick turnaround, and they could hear through it. I could hear through it, that he was right for it. It was the right instrument. It doesn't take much to hear the difference between a flute and a trumpet. And for what I do, for what we do, that's what it's about. You're each an individual instrument, and we're trying to find the exact instrument. So don't worry about the production quality. You have an iPhone, you have a better studio in your pocket than they had 20 years ago. Fact. Go to Guitar Center, pick up a little interface, you plug into it, and you're set. You don't need $10,000, whatever. That said, that's a starting point. You can also then come to someone like AJ and take it to the next level.
There we go.
Yeah, and I don't, it's a little weird to call myself a demo producer because the demos sort of flowed out of people coming to me for help on transitioning to microphone singing. So you need material to practice on when you're in the booth, and that's what becomes your demo after a couple sessions of me coaching you on how to take your stage voice onto the mic. But yeah, I also program the tracks and do the orchestrations, so that means it's kind of like a one-stop shop. You don't need to hire musicians if you don't want to. I mean, that's a terrible thing to say.
Well, no, I mean, and what you're saying is, and a little bit of an interjection here, is that a lot of times people take karaoke tracks and they just sing on top of them, and it's very good and it's fine. But keep in mind, a karaoke track, once it's been produced and once it's been compressed and stuff, is like water, right? Think of it as water, and your voice is like a drop of oil on that water, or vice versa, right? So it's very hard and not easy to get your voice to sit within that mix. Okay, we're talking the fine details here, but you have someone here who can maybe create a custom track or add things to it, which now kind of bridges between that cellophane track and your voice, which is trying to break into it. It's like mixes you here of your favorite artist, and it just envelops you. Somehow they are right there, and instruments are above and behind. And I don't know how they do it. I'm not an engineer, but it's why they win like Grammys and Academy Awards and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We only have about 10 more minutes, and I'd like to just open it up to questions that people may have. So if you just come up to the mics, you can form lines if you'd like. And
I guess I'll wear these. Hey, hi. So can I take this off?
There you go.
Okay, I started out as, I always wanted to be an actress, but I was a really good dancer. And so I worked as a dancer for about the first 10 years of my career. And then I really wanted to move into more serious acting, so I quit dancing, quit going to open calls, did a couple of movies back in the day, and focused on acting, and which was great. And I kind of hid my dancing, but now I'm like, why did I do that? You know, and I'm kind of wanting to bring it out of the bag again. And I work theater. I just closed a play at the Actors Studio. I do commercials and, you know, various things. But I'm wondering what the market is for an older dancer to come back in. I don't know. You know, I wouldn't want to be a full-time dancer, but I kind of figure, gee, I'm in good shape still. I can still move, and maybe some of the competition will have gone away. You know, what do you think?
No, that's true. A lot of the competition has gone away. The market is smaller for older dancers.
Sure.
The most successful older dancers, Bobby Bates, she's very involved with SAG-AFTRA. She's had a very long career, but one of the main reasons why she's had such a long career is she never left it. She has maintained the relationships. So as dancers get older, the choreographers that hire that category, usually commercials, films, and there's a certain number of choreographers that kind of work in those areas, and they know when they want that gray-haired older female, Bobby Bates, or Cheryl Baxter, or
I know, I worked with Cheryl.
Yeah, so there's. They literally know who they're going to hire. So what's difficult is, unless you've maintained some of those relationships, it's being introduced to that category again, because they don't have auditions for older dancers. Very rare, commercials more so than films. But so it's about reconnecting with people that are hopefully maybe still working, and reconnecting with dancers that you worked with or knew that are still in the market, because like we said, they will refer their friends to the choreographer as well. As agents, we will submit photos, but like again, the choreographers kind of go through our submission of a limited amount of people and go, I know that person, that person, that person, that person, don't know these people.
Sure.
I'm not having an audition. Yeah.
For the commercial, in the commercial world, would I be better off with a commercial that's, is specifically a dance commercial agent in addition to a regular agent?
For an older dance agents or agencies that have dance departments do have access to more commercials than agencies that don't have dance
That's
departments.
what I was wondering, yeah.
Because a lot of them don't go out on breakdowns or LA casting.
Right.
The choreographers are hired, and then they go to the dance agencies to find the dancers. But a lot of this, it's hard to explain. I mean, there's work that does happen through LA casting breakdowns looking for older dancers. Sometimes casting directors will give deference to the agencies that have those departments. I watched a casting tape recently for a commercial, and you could tell that a commercial department that did not really have dancers submitted people, because I saw this tape and I saw my client and another dance agency's client, and I was like, who's this person? And I was like, I don't recognize that person. And then they went. I was like, oh. I felt so bad for him, because literally 2 professional dancers were going freestyling, and then he had to move, and I was like, oh, that agency did not don't really have dancers. So that it's easier to get times from a dance department than a non-dance department in a dance-based commercial.
And would we still do like the dance auditions that you have? Or try to get a referral from a casting director we know or something like that?
Probably a referral is best, or submission, direct submission via our website with some footage and resume and relationships that you might have.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next question from this side.
Hi, what's up? Okay. I'm just throwing this out there as a topic, really, which is that with movie musicals being made, like Into the Woods and things like that, I think back in the day they would find a singer to sing for Natalie Wood, right? They'd get Marnie Nixon or someone like that, and now they're really, like with Les Mis, it was like right up in the actors' faces, and yeah, really in their mouths. And I always find that very interesting that someone is known as an actor, and suddenly they're in a singing position, and we all go, "Oh, they can sing," and I kind of think, well, why wouldn't they be able to sing, you know? But it feels like if you've come at it from the singing route, and this is kind of what AJ's talking about, it's like, which way are you positioning yourself, right? Because if you're coming at it from the singing position, are you going to suddenly be cast in the lead in the movie? You know, even Bernadette Peters, I'm like, well, she could have been the witch in Into the Woods. She was the original witch on Broadway. So I don't know, it's more just a kind of topic. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to that. I don't have necessarily have a question, but... Or maybe the question is, are they hiring people and dubbing them, or is that just not done
Sally,
anymore?
Maybe that would be a good question for you to answer.
I wish I did have an answer for you, but I really don't.
Sally used to be the voice of all the actresses.
Yeah, yeah,
Back earlier.
right. No, I haven't heard very much lately about auditioning or, you know, trying to find a singer that would sing for an actress.
I mean, I'm not even speaking for myself necessarily.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
I'm just
Just in
fascinated
general,
by the whole thing of what's happening.
Well, it
like,
seems to be a
we now have-
phenomenon right now, like the Les Mis thing was, and that they made him sing on the set. I was wishing as I watched it that they hadn't done that, but because I think they could have done a better performance with the singing if they had more control over the sound and everything. But I think it's part of the gimmick, you know, that, oh gosh, they can sing.
They did that.
I'm working on a musical right now, going to film, and it's a very interesting, frustrating process because what they have is they're doing a lot of demos for two actors that aren't known as any kind of singers, and so the direction was to find that pedestrian sound. So, in putting forth dozens of options and clips of singers and bringing in dozens of singers to demo, what would happen is they would go, they're too trained, sounds too good. So then we would bring in, and now I'm starting to sweat because I could see this coming. I'm reaching out to songwriters, I'm reaching out to acoustic, I'm reaching out to those people that don't spend their lives in a university polishing their tone and mix and, you know, resonance and all that kind of stuff, and French. You know, I'm reaching out to people that are just in it for the art, and their uniqueness of their voice is who they are. And again, too trained. But then they'd start bringing in like friends and stuff, and while they might have the right sound, they can't read music. They can't get it after being sung it 4 times. And so we're stuck in this weird middle ground where they've grown up and they just want that everyday, you know, Geico, you know, or Nationwide is on your side kind of spot where it just sounds like your sister's singing it or something, you know. But they still expect the musicianship, and it just rarely the two shall meet. And so ultimately I do think the actors, the actresses will be doing the stuff, but in the meantime trying to find placeholders, because the whole process is to sort out the lyrics and to sort out the songs and to get all these original songs sold off on. It's been a bit of a mind-numbing process because I'm trying to find an instrument that almost doesn't exist. Like get lucky that somehow someone will kind of sound like a singer yet be able to read music.
I may be.
But the reason I mean, at the end of the day, when you're talking about film and production, it's about money.
I was
That's
just
it.
gonna say.
It's
They're
not
doing the
about,
commercials, too.
Yeah, they're casting these actors. I mean, some of them they come from a musical theater background. If you're talking about Les Mis specifically,
If
Hugh
you're
Jackman,
lucky.
Catherine Zeta-Jones, you know, these people. But distribution, it's about overseas sales, it's about money. And so if they can cast a huge Oscar-winning actor that they can figure out how to make them hold a tune and sound sort of okay, that's what they're gonna do. And screw the rest of us who've been training hard to get there. I mean, it's the reality of this business that we're in.
We're almost out of time. I want to move on to a few more questions.
Okay, well, okay, this is difficult. All of those answers kind of formed another question in my head. So I'm studying singing, dancing, acting, the whole shebang. And when, I guess, is it best to kind of keep variation and kind of have, like, practice the natural, raw kind of sound and also work on training and specific, sorry, this is not worded very well. But is it best to hone in on something specific? Will that be best in the long run? Or, because I know you were talking about variation, and then some people just decide to do one thing or to have many things. And I mean, that's a struggle because I find that I like country, I like pop, I like a cappella, I like musical theater. What do I do with that? I'm working on all of them right now because college and I can. But at some point, is it best for me to choose one and really become good at that? I mean, when do I stop practicing and learning and, oh, that seems kind of cool, I'll work on that and add it and just really hone in? And do you keep doing that? Obviously, you keep learning as you grow older, but I don't know, just
I think you find the place where you get the greatest traction and you start to mine that. If you're versatile, there's nothing wrong with that. I think part of what was being advised against is if they're asking for little red pots with ears that stick out, don't go in with your entire arsenal because you're going to confuse the issue. I started working because I did one thing. I could sing gruff and smooth in Spanish. I expanded into other areas because I could do other things effectively enough that when the red light was on, I could deliver. As far as what I worked on all of it. You know, I worked on all of it. It's just what you managed to put forward at a given moment that would dictate what I might emphasize at a given moment.
I think if you're talking about trying to combine acting and singing and dancing, that you would be wise to strengthen your voice so you have control over it, and be a little bit flexible. But there's a wonderful classical singer who's started to do some pop stuff, and I can't think of her name right now. And to my ear, if you get to a certain point with a classical voice, I think it's very hard to not have that come through. I've always felt that a style of singing, whether you could, unless you're super, super operatic or super, super classical, that it's a shift of gear in your brain. That's what it is for me. But I think for someone like yourself who wants to be an actress who can sing, you want to be able to sing whatever that actress is going to have to perform. So I would think that you'd want to strengthen your voice, but not, lock in one particular style.
And it's also a question of what you're convincing to the audience, because a lot of us think that we can do like, I wish I could be a country western singer. I would love that, but it's not something that I would look comfortable doing at all.
You look just like Daughtry. Right?
All right then.
But
it's a spiritual thing that's going to come across when you're in front of an audience, and if you can hone in, and maybe you already know what it is, and you're just maybe afraid to admit it because everything else is so much fun. That's kind of my problem. Like, you want to do everything, but if you are able to select one thing, just the decision to hone in on that is going to inform everything else that's going to come your way. So you're going to be versatile, but if you're able to do one thing, that to me is something that reads better.
Make sure you have some safe places. I mean, your mom's going to love everything you do. Mine does, but my mom is not. My mom is not my end-all, be-all. I love her, but I know when I do a good job. I have close friends that tell me when I'm good at something and not good at something. And keep in mind, presenting your talents out there as if I'm amazing at all of this is very different than approaching someone to go, give me your opinion. I get demos sent where people go, check me out, I'm amazing. And I get demos sent where people go, can you please let me know what I'm really good at? Now, it's all subjective, and I'm just one person. But I've heard enough and seen enough and been with enough talent of all genres of music and styles where I have a good idea of at least what your competition is. So make sure you have some safe places where you can ask honest questions and not take the criticism, it's constructive criticism, and that they're coming from a place of love and from a place of respect, and they want the best for you as well.
I know we're technically out of time, but if you're all okay with just finishing up these last two questions, that would be great. Go ahead.
I like what you said there, Jasper, about safe places. About 10 years ago, somebody said to me, "Don't be a Renaissance man." I was an actor when I was a kid on stage, and then I did radio for 30 years or so, where I met you, Dan, many years back. We have 19 Facebook friends in common. But I think for me now, because of new media and so many changes in the way show business is working with all the amateurs that are suddenly have 70 jillion hits, I think for me the key is diversify your income streams. Find the things that you do best. Find your safe places. Find the things that you are best at. But then don't be afraid of hitting every one of them. I get VO auditions for a Kevin Spacey sound-alike. I don't sound like Kevin Spacey, but then I get one so I don't do that one. I'll skip that one. But then I get a Johnny Depp ADR. I listen to it. I can talk like that. So, I think you have to find where you're strongest. But then the trick now for me, of course, 'cause I've only been here for 2 years, coming just because the radio business died in New York, is where do you find the people that will help put you forward with your strengths? So, for instance, I've looked everywhere on the internet, and I can't find where an agent for a sound designer would be, because that's one of the things I do. Where do you find a sound designer agent? An agent that will say, he's a good sound designer, he'll do your movie.
I think that's another panel.
Yeah, maybe so.
There's more.
But
more.
it's part, for me, sound design is composing and a little bit of acting and all those things.
More and more agencies are widening the people they represent, from book writers to composers. I'm always amazed. I work with a lot of agencies and agents. They come to us for numerous talent, and the people that they represent are so varied. I would not put it past reaching out to some of these larger agencies and see if there's representation. They want to they want to represent talent. They want to represent income creating talent. So don't fall into the trap. What you said earlier. Do not fall into the trap of thinking that your goal, your life, is a straight road. It's not. It's a. I keep trying to. Is it a circle or is it a bowl? Whatever it is. I grew up wanting to be a composer. I was composing. It opened up a door to be a vocal contractor. I've been vocal contracting. It made me want to keep my voice in shape. I started singing with the choir. They found out I was a composer. Now I'm their composer in residence. If that's not full circle, I don't know what is. So don't pass up opportunities if it's all in the same bowl. Don't get in this mindset that if you're not heading that direction, that it must be wrong. Because everyone up here is here because we didn't have blinders on. We were headed this direction. We went, oh, wait, what? And we knew we could do it, and we knew we would be amazing at it, and so we jumped at the opportunity. At the same time, if you're given an opportunity and you're not going to knock it out of the park, don't do it. Don't do it. You got plenty of your colleagues that do. Don't do it. Do what you do amazing and go for it. Go for those opportunities that you know you will succeed at, or else you're going to spend a lot of wasted time, and you're going to negate yourself in many areas by people going, oh, I thought you said you're really good at this, and you're not. But at the same time, you might be really good at this. So don't get in that mindset. No blinders, and jump at those opportunities, even if it's not exactly what you thought you wanted to do. Because we're all up here, whatever we do, we're making a living in the arts. And that's an incredible blessing.
Thanks for staying, guys. I'm Christy Rose. I'm an actress and a singer, and a very prominent mover. I would not define myself as a dancer.
I like the way you put that.
But I teach a lot of yoga, and I've been getting a lot of auditions for yoga and commercials. And I was just I'm with a smaller agency, but I was just wondering, Pete and Dana or anyone else who has any experience, do you guys get auditions for yoga people as dancers, or do those cross over at all, or?
I have had auditions for Yoga Girl, but that came from my commercial agent.
Okay.
I don't think I've gotten any sports-related stuff from the dance department, but it is definitely a huge thing.
Yeah, it's growing like crazy.
When I first signed with my commercial agent, they said, you need to do yoga pictures, because it's another passion of mine. It's the thing that I love. Definitely worth having photos at the very least.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's happening. I mean, there's lots of castings that we see looking for yoga, either people that can pull off yoga or actual yoga instructors.
Yeah.
And it does happen through, I mean, it just happens to be a lot of dancers do yoga, so they do have some training, a lot of them are
Do
instructors
you ever
themselves.
take people on that are like master instructors specifically for that?
It would probably it'd be more of our commercial department that would do that, because our dance department would expect that person to also dance.
Of course.
But our commercial department signs, of course, people with specialties.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you guys.
So thank everyone so much for being here. I just wanted to say one thing in closing, and that is I really think that being able to listen to the dancers and the singers and all together, it just makes us a stronger union. If we can understand the challenges that singers have and dancers have and actors have, we all are one union, and it just makes us even stronger. So thank you so much for being here and participating.